few minutes ago, Scott thanked Kim for her beautiful solo. I want to thank all of the worship leaders this morning who helped in any way whatsoever. It takes an effort and a willingness on the part of the organist, on the part of the ushers, on the part of the greeters, on the part of the liturgists, the children's sermonette folks, all of them to make it all come together as God inspires. So a special word to you also, Scott. Scott has been a personal help to me this morning. Although I must say, he was not so impressed when I came in and I said, well, Scott, I guess you're all ready to go with the sermon, then I'm going to be doing the liturgy this morning. And somehow that wasn't the way he wanted to start the morning. You know. Once again, I am humbled and very honored to be here as a guest pastor today. When Reverend Eli asked me about a month and a half ago, I was very eager to come here on July 12th in this particular role and to share a message with all of you. As that message begins, I would like to ask that we would all bow for a word of prayer. Can we do that, please? Oh God, there is a message this morning, but it's not from me. It is from you. If I, O God, am to be the channel and the vessel that you would use to proclaim the prophecy of Micah, to proclaim your prophecy, to speak with a message, if that is the message you desire, and if you desire me to speak it, O God, then place the words in my mouth and on my tongue, because without you, there is nothing to say. May I be a faithful servant as you anoint me now. And may all of our ears and minds and hearts and eyes be moved and open today as we would hear your challenge for each of us. In the name of Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. He prophesied at a time approximately 700 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. His name was Micah. Now, sometimes the words of people, ancient words especially, find their way out of our hearing, out of our remembrance, but not so biblical writers. Not so, in this instance, the prophet Micah. Micah issues a challenge to all of Israel as God uses him as an instrument to prophesy. But that message is not confined only to the Israelites of the 8th century. It is our message and our challenge as well. And it all comes down, perhaps this morning at least, to a single question. What does it take? What does it take to please God? What are God's requirements, and can you and I possibly begin to meet those requirements? Now, you know, we live in a society which is requirement-driven. If you're young and aspiring to a particular career, perhaps your question is, all right, what will it take? Where do I have to go to school, and for how long? How many courses will I have to embark on? How many degrees will I need before I can meet what I consider to be my goal? If you're in business, certainly you are aware that requirements exist all of the time. The deadlines, the commitments, the day-to-day. It is part of running a business, is it not? Even if you're planning to get married, there are requirements of marriage. Not only setting up the wedding and getting that ready and the reception hall, that's only the beginning of it. That's just the first day. What about the rest of the days of the marriage? What are the requirements? And how can you meet those requirements? Same with God. But you know, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? When you read the first 4 or 5 verses of this text from Micah chapter 6, it almost sounds as if God is on his knees, that God is pleading with his people. You know, what have I done to you? How have I overburdened you? Have I done that? he stopped short of saying, I'm sorry. But it seems that way, doesn't it? You know, like when the salesperson comes back to you after you said no about the price offered on that trade for the new car, and the salesperson, oh, I'm sorry, let me try again. Please give me a second chance. I don't want to burden you. Let's see if we can work out another price. Sounds like God is doing that, doesn't it? Well, he is not doing that. God is not a God who comes crawling to his people on his bended knees, begging them for a second chance. As a matter of fact, God is standing up to his people and basically saying, have the requirements that I have given you to live under my law, have those really been too much for you? You agreed to them once. Do you remember a long time ago when I brought you out of the land of slavery up from Egypt? Do you remember when I sent to you Moses and Aaron and Miriam? Do you remember that journey that you made from Shittim to Gilgal? Do you remember all of that? Has that really burdened you? Has it burdened you so much, Israel, my chosen ones, that you have elected to turn away from me? That you have chosen wickedness and disobedience? Is that what has happened to you? Oh no, God is not crawling to them on bended knees. He is actually humbling them that they would bow down to him and answer his question. And so the question naturally follows from the lips of Israel, specifically from the lips of Micah, and it is the challenge presented to you and me this morning. What does it take? What does it take? And in the response, we find these answers this morning, that it's going to take, at least so says God, it's going to take that we love justice, and that we love mercy, and that we walk humbly with our God. We find something of a similar answer in the New Testament. When Jesus is asked one day, Lord, what is the greatest commandment of all? You know, we're always interested in, well, what do I need to do? And what's the greatest one? If I don't do anyone else, what's the greatest one? And do you remember what Jesus said? He said, the Lord your God is your God. You must love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. And oh yes, the second most important one is you must love your neighbor as yourself. And so 3 requirements. Micah chapter 6, let's look at verses 6 through 8 and see what God might have in mind. If we would please him, first of all, we are to act justly. We hear the word justice a lot. I don't know about you, but when I hear the word justice spoken in public, I think right away about maybe a justice center or some judicial authorities or the racial problem, the racial justice and the inequality and all of that we hear so much about. Well, those are certainly applicable, but to you and to me and to all who would believe in God, if we are to act justly, that means that in our lives, justice is not just a theory or a concept. It means that we care about justice, that we share in meting out justice. It is more than applicable to just to the judicial authorities and to the police and to the politicians. It applies to each and every one of us. Not confine them to matters solely of justice as we see it in our culture. Those do apply, but it goes beyond that. It is applicable on the playground, on the highway. It's applicable in the sports arena and in the supermarket. It's applicable in the church, in the narthex, in the pew. It's applicable on the street where you and I live. It is applicable in our families. It is applicable in our workplaces. It is applicable to us in every conceivable situation that we care about justice. Were you ever bullied when you were little? Even a little bit. Is it too far-fetched to say that probably all of us have been bullied in one way or another? We hear a lot about it today, that how it needs to be stopped. But we were all probably bullied at least a little bit when we were little, even if we had that older brother or older sister that just wouldn't let us go and just wouldn't treat us the right way. Remember how we felt? Do you remember how we might have felt something like, doesn't anybody care about me? Mom doesn't even seem to care because she never yells at the big brother or the big sister. Something like that. The fact is, in our lives, there are always going to be people with whom we have contact from time to time who, for one reason or another, are being deprived of justice. Again, not just legal justice. Justice in terms of fairness, fair treatment, a fair shake, a fair chance. And when you and I, who have a voice and who at any given moment can speak on behalf of the one who needs the justice, when we fail to do that, we are committing the greatest injustice that can be created. But oh, when we take the time to speak, when we take the time to care, when we take the time to turn justice from a concept into a working reality in our lives, are we not availing ourselves of one of the greatest opportunities to present good news, the good news of God, to someone? Never pass by an opportunity to become involved in an issue of justice. Oh, it may not be popular, and you may take some heat, but if you know that what you are doing is right in the eyes of God, don't fail to act. What else does it take? We are to love mercy. Are we living in a merciful or a merciless society right now? Somehow I must confess, I think it's the latter. We live in a very merciless society. As if somehow many have adopted a golden rule that goes like this: do it to others because they did it to you. We live in the kind of society where somehow it is popular and even allowed that we would choose who is worthy of forgiveness and who is not worthy of receiving forgiveness and mercy. Would you not agree that sometimes, if a politician is caught in some kind of wrongdoing or makes a mistake, sometimes it depends on our political affiliation whether or not we might accept the apology of that politician. If you're in the party of the politician and the politician apologizes, then maybe you'd be inclined to say something like, well, she's only human, he's only human. You know, they've done all they can do. But if you're on the other end, you call that an apology? You think he or she apologized? I don't accept that. He has to do more. Has to try more. And then we also live in a culture where, for some reason, it's okay to allow some sins to go unforgiven. There are, we might say, just some sins that can never be forgiven. I'll share with you a personal experience as a pastor. A lady came to my office one day. This is several years ago, and I knew the lady fairly well. And she confessed to me through tears all of the abuse she had endured at the hands of her father when she was growing up, and how she could not forgive him. What did the Bible say? I felt it's my duty as a pastor to be sensitive and to tell her that the Bible does call for forgiveness. She said, you see, you don't get it. You don't get it, Pastor Barry, she said. You weren't there. You don't know what it's like to be afraid and to be abused. And you know what? She was right. I didn't get it entirely because I had not been in that situation. But when we read the Scriptures, do we find exceptions made to when we may offer forgiveness? But Pastor Mary, you'll say, if you forgive, sometimes you're just not dealing with the issue. You're sweeping it under the rug. Oh no, that's not real forgiveness. Real forgiveness sometimes forces everyone to deal with the issue. But it gets it off of your shoulders and places it in the hands of God, who is in the business of dealing with people and seeking out repentance and helping people to grow in other ways. So forgiveness is not just an easy thing that we hand out. But oh, when we do offer mercy and when we do forgive, Not just 7 times, but 70 times 7, or 7 times 7, or however many times the translations may tell us that the Bible demands it. When we do that, we're turning the whole matter over to God and giving ourselves perhaps the first good night's sleep in many, many years. Oh yes, we are called upon to love mercy. And while we're talking about that, just consider the number of times that you and I ask for mercy. And we beg for mercy. After all, you have to understand, I'm only a human being. You know, I make some mistakes too. Can't you please forgive me? Do you know what it is to need and want forgiveness? Well, when you give mercy and when I give mercy, we're granting it to someone who has similar human feelings. One more thing about requirements today, that we would walk humbly with our God. What does that mean? Well, it simply means this: God is still God. We are human. God has revealed himself in many wonderful, wonderful ways. And we've read about it in his word, and we see the many deeds that God has performed around us, and we rejoice in all of that. And we can know God. But remember, in this world, we cannot know God fully or completely. We can't know anything or everything completely. Oh yes, we have wonderful minds, wonderful imaginations. Look what we've done in the fields of medicine and space travel and knowledge and education and computers and all of the rest. We can do things now, and we know things now that we didn't years ago. This coming Tuesday, there is a spacecraft way out there in space called New Horizons. You know what it's going to try to take images and pictures of? Little Pluto. Is it a planet or a subplanet or whatever they're calling Pluto nowadays? It's never been done up close, that closely before. And this spacecraft is going to take some pictures. Probably by Tuesday night or Wednesday, if it goes well, you and I may be seeing pictures of Pluto on our TV screens or on YouTube somewhere. It's amazing, isn't it? And yet, when we get to the point, if we get to the point, where we feel we know everything and can do everything, and there's nothing awesome to look upon or learn about, then indeed there's nothing to live for. We need to be humbled with our God to realize who this God is. I'm reminded of the star of the football team, high school football team, about 16 years old, great big fella, muscles and weight and all that it takes. And his mother punishes him for something, and he looks at her and says, "Why, how can you do that? I'm 16 years old, come on, Mom." She says, "I did it because I'm Mom. I'm still your mom." Well, God is still our God. And we need to remember that. We need to submit to God. We need to call upon God. We need to ask God for direction. We need to inquire of God, and we may not understand everything, but God is still God, and we as human beings need to walk humbly with this God, that we would hear the slightest whisper of that Spirit as it speaks to us. To do justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. This is the challenge. How are we going to start to do this? What steps, what measures can you and I as a congregation and individually put into effect right now, today, on Sunday, not tomorrow, but right now? What measures can we put into effect to demonstrate to God that we are doing justly and loving mercy and walking humbly with this God? Is there someone that you know that you can help out who for one reason or another is not getting a fair shake of good justice? Is there someone today who needs your mercy, your forgiveness? Someone who could have a burden lightened on his or her shoulders because you made the choice to forgive, or because I made the choice to forgive? Do you know of anyone? And what about God? When you pray to God, when I pray to God, when we speak to this loving God, are we still remembering how awesome and wonderful and how above us this God surely is? And how very, very much we need him, even in a world and in a day and an age when we somehow have come to think that we've just about realized every dream and attained every goal. We still need this God. So, what is required? What does it take? Does it take our money, our time, our talents? Yes, of course it does. God wants all of those, but in the end, what God really, really asks of us, first and foremost, is our hearts. Go now in the peace and then of the love of God, which is from everlasting to everlasting, and serve this God by doing justly and loving kindness and mercy and walking humbly.